Hi, I'm Amanda Neely, and welcome to Grandma's Wealth Wisdom, where we help you break through to a smart, stable financial future using the tried and true wisdom Grandma used. Today, we've got a very special episode for you. It's episode number 63 with Judy Li. How's that for rhyming? We didn't even intend to do that when we set out. And I've titled this episode, Do What You Like. We've got a really great conversation ahead, and this idea of doing what you like as you listen, look for times when Judy is choosing to do what she likes and making sure she can continue to do what she likes going forward. Hope you enjoy, and I'll catch you at the end for a little bit of a wrap up. Welcome, Judy, to the Grandma's Wealth Wisdom podcast. Great to have you here.
It is great to be here.
Give
Hey,
us
Amanda.
a little sneak peek into who is Judy and why are we talking today?
So Judy, I am a woman who lives in Chicago. I've been here for about 5 years and have been exploring kind of a career in impact. So currently, I work for a venture fund and I enjoy it. And I've been interested in environmental sustainability. So that's been a key driver for a lot of my interests and career path and a lot of activities that I like to get involved in. And on the side, when I'm not working or doing other stuff I have to do, I have a little houseplant garden situation. So I like to work on them. I like to go out and be active outdoors, COVID allowing, and kind of think through like how I can have like a good impact on the world, whether that's through like volunteering or through whatever I'm doing at work.
Yeah, I think that's how we met, was through one of those impact organizations that was hosting like a networking thing. And we met that way and connected because we had similar passions regarding making a positive difference in the world and environmental sustainability. Take us a little back, like what brought you to seeing that as the main thing you wanted to do with your life?
I was fortunate that I grew up in Southern California, really close to the Pacific Ocean. And so I, like many kiddos growing up, I wanted to be a marine biologist or an oceanographer or like something outdoors and on the water. And that kind of stemmed into just an interest in general with like nature and outdoors. And then, interest in conservation turned into interest in like climate change and environmental justice and, all kinds of other issues related to that. And so it really started from just really enjoying being outside as a kid. And I still enjoy that. So it's still here.
Yeah, good. Awesome. Because when you enjoy nature, you want to take care of it so that you can keep enjoying it. That makes a lot of sense to me. So we knew each other for a long time before I transitioned into what I do now.
Yeah.
And I remember I had told you about the concept that I work with now and like how it impacted me and way before this was ever my profession. And I introduced you to a financial professional that you could work with. Like, tell us that story and what it was like to meet him and start talking with him and why you ultimately didn't work with him.
Yeah. So I think I always knew that I wanted to be more actively managing my money. And so it's not like I make a ton of money at work, but I come from a family that really likes to save. And so that's kind of been ingrained with me for a long time. And So the value of like saving money is really important. And then my growing up, my parents did, look into stocks and mutual funds and, these other ways of investing. And so it's always been something that I've wanted to learn more about and practice with the limited amount of money that I had to work with. And always, I've heard for a long time that you need to start early. And so I've been thinking about this since I like moved to Chicago. Like I should eventually start to think about my money in a smart way, and do something with it other than keep it in a bank account. Um, and so Amanda, you introduced me to a friend of yours, who is also a financial advisor, and we were exploring some different things that we could do together. And ultimately, I think that we were looking at things that were not traditional, and I'm like open to that. So non-traditional ways of growing your money, of keeping your money more secure so it's ready for you when you want to use it in the future. And it was hard for me to move forward with that with somebody who I didn't know as well. And even though I really liked this individual, there was nothing that he did or said that made me uncomfortable per se, but it was just the fact that this is kind of um, a kind of difficult topic. It's a sensitive topic. You work hard for your money, and you don't want to like do anything that you aren't super sure about.
Yeah.
And so I think I couldn't move forward on some of those strategies that he had outlined, just because I wasn't ready to move forward with someone I didn't know as well, with things that I was less familiar with.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Um, and then, of course, I got into this role, and I'm just speaking freely. It was a little awkward for me to be like, "Hey, Judy, we're friends. Do you want to talk about money with me?" And I get that. Like, there's lots of people that I would consider my friends that are like, "No, I just don't talk about money with friends," right? Like, or with somebody I know. For you, like from your perspective, what was it about me bringing that subject up that you were like, "Yeah, I could totally talk to you, Amanda, about that."
um, I think so is the question like, what is it about you or our relationship?
Yeah, or just in general, like why do you feel more comfortable, or what is it about talking with friends about money that is more comfortable than talking with a stranger?
Well, so I would be one of those friends who would be happy to talk with my friends about money,
Right.
obviously. And I think that it's because there's like a certain level of trust with friends, and it's like, well, if if you respect our friendship is or suggest things that aren't in my best interest, is kind of like my philosophy around that. And because I already had a friendship with you, and a few years of like, just knowing what you were up to and everything, I did trust your judgment um, with the suggestions that you were providing, because they were also things that you've contemplated yourself doing. And so if you decided to do it, and I think you're pretty smart, then I'm going to pay attention to it. And you've not only considered doing it, you've done these things, and they've proven to be effective and work as intended for
Hmm.
you. And so I trust that for something that is a little less familiar and less people do, or just a more creative way of thinking about your finances. It is helpful to be working with somebody who has gone through the motions themselves too and done something similar.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. I agree. Like, that's probably why I started working with a financial professional when I did, just a few years, before, because I had built that trust, and I felt like I could trust him, and on a different level before I said, okay, now I'm ready to talk about money. Um, yeah. So we start working together. What's that process been like? What have been some of the things you've enjoyed? What have been some of the things that have been more difficult?
Um, there's nothing that you've done that like made it more difficult. If anything, I've made it more difficult for myself. I have a lot of like, I think through things a lot sometimes, and so um, I think this stuff is naturally difficult because you have to make decisions and then
Yeah.
you have to do it. And then you have to, it's like, it's real. It's like your money that you're either investing or like putting somewhere, whatever. And, and I think the like feeling, almost feeling your risk tolerance on like how much you want to do when, how far you want to go in there versus diversify, like whatever it is, that can be hard to think through because it really is dependent on individually, like my own comfort level.
Yeah.
And so that can be challenging because it just takes time and it takes time to think about, be real with yourself. Um, but you know, things that I really enjoyed working with you is you're super on top of it all the time. So I feel like if something's not happening, it's not because of you, it's because I'm just taking a long time figuring my stuff out. um, and also you're like, it's great to talk with you. Like I feel like even if we didn't know each other as well, like just your personality and your presence and how you ask questions in order to make sure it's something that I understand and also want to do, um, is really great.
Thanks. You're really easy to talk to as well. I'm remembering that some of the conversations we had when COVID hit and the stock market was going kind of crazy. Do you want to talk about those at all?
Um, sure.
Yeah,
Um,
maybe like because you have this really interesting thought process that I thought was really awesome, that you shared with me then, in terms of like what you think the future of the stock market could look like, and things, and particularly knowing that um, yeah, you do have a cool perspective on it. So maybe some of that like philosophy, that kind of thing. Do you mind sharing that with our listeners?
sure. I mean, for what it's worth, I'm not an expert, but um, okay. So my thought was I had some money that I've wanted to invest with. And I had a feeling when COVID was first kind of becoming a big concern in the United States. Um, I had a feeling, and also the stock market tanked, you know, in late February 2020. And I had a feeling that it would actually it could be volatile for a while, and Amanda, you and I talked about this too, you know, thinking about like what the possibilities might be. But yeah, that the stock market could be volatile. It could keep going down, it could come up and then down, or like what, like we don't really know. um, I had a feeling that the severity um, of the crash and the jobs that were going to get lost and the businesses that were going to close and like and everything, I had a feeling that it could lead to a recession, or something like it, just based on observing how other things might have played out. And so my view was I wanted to deploy some capital into the market, but I didn't know when would be the right time to buy stocks and things to kind of capture the lower price, in hopes of like future growth. And I also wanted to have be strategic, with the vehicles that I had. There was, you know, a Roth IRA that I could fill up. There was, you know, just investing in the stock market. And so in investing in the stock market, I also wanted to keep my investments more long term. So buy something that I would keep it for at least a year. And so with that in mind, my strategy was let's try to be paced about how much how much money I put into the stock market and my Roth IRA, max that out, put money into the stock market, and try to do it. I think I decided to do it to put in money once a quarter, for like 6 quarters. No, 4 quarters. A little over a year, I think, was my plan, from when I would start, and that way, who knows what direction the stock market would take, but I was like spreading out the risk instead of putting all of the money in at any particular point. And something we had talked about was also it might take time for the stock market to reach its actual low, just because, and we've seen it thus far. There's been a lot of people going into the stock market, and stock prices have continued to increase in a lot of things, and which is kind of surprising given like the economic situation and the rate of unemployment. And so the big question still is like, is the stock market going to readjust to actually reflect more of what's going on in society and the economy? Who knows? But that's kind of why my strategy is to put in, a bit every quarter, kind of regardless, because we can't really tell the future.
Yeah. I think that's the bottom line there. You don't know what the future holds, so you transfer the risk as much as you can or mitigate it. And kudos to you for coming up with that strategy to spread out your investing rather than do it all in one big chunk. That sounds really good.
I was really uncomfortable with doing it all in one chunk at any time, like now, later, like, so this, I don't know if I could have gotten comfortable with any other structure, but
yeah. And tax-wise, holding it for a year, that sounds like you're thinking about taxes, and how you can get capital gains if you wait and things like that.
Yes, that's right. So the capital gains tax was the consideration for that. And then in the Roth IRA, I've been having a little more fun in there because you can like buy and sell without tax implications. Mm-hmm. And so I don't spend a ton of time doing stocks because I just don't have, either I don't prioritize it enough or I don't have the time. But when I do, it's kind of fun to just like play around in the Roth IRA because of that like no tax on capital gains situation, for that account.
Yeah. And then maybe, so we're pretty upfront that we're not telling you what stocks to buy or any index funds or mutual funds. So how does like the work that we do together help you do what you want to do in the stock market better or worse? I don't know.
So something that we're trying out is the concept of using whole life insurance and investing in the stock market. The reason I like this is because the benefit of whole life insurance is that you can keep the money in there and then it will grow as part of that policy, that whole life insurance policy. The value of the money will continue to grow, maybe at a lower rate than some really high, fast gains in the stock market. But it's there. And then you can borrow off of your policy and put that money into the stock market so that the stocks kind of grow in there. And so you kind of have money growing in two places as a result. And if, this might be getting into the weeds, but part of the whole setup is that by taking a loan on your policy and whole life insurance, you do have some interest that comes in as part of that. But then if you're expecting your money in the stock market to grow more, then that interest, it's kind of worth it. And you can't ignore the fact that your money in the whole life insurance policy is also still growing. So you still have all of your money growing, even though you have a little bit of interest. Um, it's still worth it, was my calculation.
Yeah.
And so I think that's like one of the cool things. Another opportunity that we can get to, well, let me know if you have another question for this, but
No, go
we
for
can
it.
also we can also talk about um, how whole life insurance kind of policy in your financials can help with other kinds of large purchases. So I've like kind of using it for the stock market play is one way. Another thing that I've been thinking a lot about is maybe this isn't the case during COVID, but is when it comes to like renting places for living, renting apartments versus like buying a unit. Um, a lot of the times it's just, do you have the money up front to buy, to get a loan to like buy a unit, and versus constantly renting. And so when you look at the math, renting a unit is like more expensive than like the mortgage payment you would have to pay if you buy kind of a similar unit. And that maybe that's not the case everywhere, but it's similar enough where if I could use my whole life insurance policy to help provide capital to buy a unit that I want to live in instead of renting it, that could also be pretty valuable, because then I would be saving over time on like not having to pay the higher rent. I'd be paying the mortgage, but then that loan on my policy still leaves that amount in my whole life insurance policy to continue to grow. So that might be like way too in the weeds, but there's just like other large purchases that might or might not happen in the future that I kind of just like having um, the ability to loan out of the whole life insurance in order to cover.
Yeah. And you never know what those future large purchases could be. They could be a home, they could be something else. As you think about your future, what are some of the things you're hopeful for, that you're looking forward to? And maybe that relate to your finances, maybe not.
Well, I'm looking forward to um, seeing how this stock market plays out. I mean, who knows how the stock market's going, but we'll stick with it, stick with the plan. Um, and so I have my eyes in the horizon on a wedding in the future. So um, I'm engaged,
Congratulations.
and thank you. And somehow we're going to have a wedding of some sort. And so the cost, who knows what that's going to be. Um, but that's something big. Um, at one point in my a couple of years ago, I was thinking to go to apply for MBA or to not. For the moment, I'm not, because it looks like there's a lot of opportunity with my current job. But if that were different, that would be a really big commitment financially and also time wise in your life to go to school for a couple of years. Um, so so that for now is not happening, but it was something I was considering before. Um, and and then who knows with like life. I already mentioned, I mentioned about moving places and place that you live in. That would ideally, if it's going to be a place that I want to live in for a longer period of time, that would ideally be the situation where I try to own a place instead of continuing to rent. And so that that's kind of exciting, and something I'm hoping that I can position my financials in order to make that possible.
Sounds good. Um, I know you've studied entrepreneurship a lot, and a lot of our listeners are entrepreneurs or maybe intrapreneurs in their jobs.
Mhm.
What would be your advice for someone thinking about entrepreneurship or maybe already starting that in terms of like what you've learned? What should they always remember?
Yeah,
I
this is
put
a
you on the
hard
spot with that
question.
question.
A hard question. Hmm. Wow. So I found that I have pursued different kinds of projects, whether they could turn into a business or like they were never meant to turn into a business or whatever it is. And um, and then, my experience with entrepreneurship is also I work for a venture capital fund. And so I am working with some pretty successful entrepreneurs, some pretty inspiring entrepreneurs as well through my job. Um, and and I guess from my personal experience, having never actually turned an idea that I had into an actual company, is my learning from that is, it also depends like why I'm trying to do it. So I am driven by a larger desire to make positive impact in whatever it is. But a lot of times I turned to that when something wasn't quite satisfactory with my current job. Like whatever it was that I was currently spending a lot of time doing or thinking about, um, if I was feeling a little unsatisfied about it, and feeling like there was less room to grow there or like whatever it was, then my brain would start like thinking about other things that I might rather do. And
Hmm.
so like that was my learning. And so the advice and ultimately those things were things that I thought, oh, were kind of interesting, but they weren't as well thought out. Um, that then became businesses. And I never really took the leap on them because it just never became something that I was either driven enough on in order for it to like be a whole new thing by itself. Um, and I think it was partially because of the reasons why it came about. So if it came about because I was dissatisfied with something, well, that's not a good enough reason to actually start a company. It has to be like a really well thought out, um, both on like what the company is going to do and also on your passion for it. And I feel like my passion for it was not necessarily there as much. It was more so I would rather do this than this other thing. um, but that's not a good reason. So that was one thing, kind of like really understanding like what is it that's pushing you to do this. Is it because you're actually like in love with the thing that you're pushing forward, or is it just because it's like a cool idea that you were driven towards because you didn't like something else? um, I don't know if that's an okay answer.
No, that's a great answer because I feel like I know people that were starting side hustles because they were just dissatisfied with their full-time hustle, or their two different part-time hustles, or whatever they were doing. Um, and that side hustle I think when you do that, it becomes something that is also dissatisfying and it can't last very long because you are getting into it for the wrong reason. So I've seen
Mm-hmm.
that happen. I think that's a really good piece of advice to be thinking through. Cool. Any other parting words of wisdom from you for our listeners?
um Parting words of wisdom. I mean, I do want to say Amanda's awesome. Um, but okay, words of wisdom. Um, I don't know, just do what you like. I feel like so many times we get stuck in doing things of because they feel like things that we should like, or um, or are easier, they seem safe, or they seem, and there are times where that's really valuable. But if there's something that you would rather do, like lean into that and like really feel it out, like how we were talking about before, like feel out why you want to do it. But if it's for the right reasons and it's something that you can do, like just explore it, kind of take care of yourself so you can have that space, that like clarity to hear yourself and what you want. I've been working on that for a long time. All the time. I feel like I'm not quite there yet, but I'm working on it. But it's something that I think if more of us were able to take care of ourselves so that we can have that space to like hear ourselves and what we want and really pursue those things, we'd be in a different place.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. I love we've kind of come full circle in a different way than people might expect because we started out with impact and now we're talking about doing what you like and self-care, but those are totally intertwined. And that's a big part of my story as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
definitely.
Well, thank you for joining us and I'll talk to you again soon.
Talk to you soon. Thank you, Amanda. It's
Thank
great to be
you.
on this.
So, did you catch all those things that Judy likes to do and how she's aligned her money with those? She started with talking about how her family is a family of savers and they have always been savers and also wanting their money to grow. So, that's become something that she likes to do as well. And then she likes kind of having a both and financial strategy where she can have safe, secure, accessible, or liquid money that she's able to use, and she can put some money at risk and play around with it in the stock market, which is exactly what you're doing when you're in the stock market. You're playing, you're gambling, and she has that both and to be able to do that because she likes to. She also likes to make some big purchases like purchasing a home rather than renting, getting married, maybe getting an MBA, keeping her options open sounds like something she likes to do as well. And I love that she brought it to the close there with, finding something you like to do and pursuing it, whether that be entrepreneurship or outside of entrepreneurship, what you do in your work, how you manage your money, what you want your money to do for you, getting clear on what it is that you like and doing that. And making sure that's why you're doing something, not just because you're dissatisfied with something else. And I love the word she used, explore, that really is an exploration type process. Often something that doesn't happen like that. If you could hear my finger snap, snap. That's not how we explore and find what we like. This isn't like a snap. It's more of a longer process, and we can't rush through that. That's something that I'm talking a lot about more over on our other podcast that was released this month called the Fife Movement Podcast or the Fife Podcast. As of this recording, it hasn't officially been released, but it's out there now. Be sure to check out the link in this episode if you want to check out the podcast where we're doing a little bit more exploration of what does financial independence mean from a feminine and entrepreneurial perspective. They're very different style from the Grandma's Wealth Wisdom podcast. But I think if you like this one, you'll like that one. So go check it out. Again, Fife, F-I-F-E. Just Google or just put into your podcast searcher that, and you should find it. Okay, I'll see you over there, or I'll see you next time for Grandma's Wealth Wisdom. We're done with interviews. We're bringing back awesome content about different financial things. We're going to start digging into some history and telling some stories about money that you might not have heard before, but are absolutely true, at least as best as we can find. So hit that subscribe button. And until next time, keep building your wealth simply and sustainably so you can break through to a smart, stable financial future. The topics in this podcast are for general information only and not for the purposes of providing legal, accounting, or investment advice. On such matters, please consult a professional who knows your specific situation.